In my work, I spend a lot of time with people helping them discover their purpose, whether it be individuals or organisations. And I'm passionate about what I do. And I'm also passionate about mission. I'm passionate about people stepping out of their boxes and discovering that space of God that's just outside the boundaries of who they are, and stepping into that place and taking God in them, with them, into those places. And I don't think there's any Christian educator who's sitting in here today who would say that mission does not belong within the context of a Christian school. Of course it does. Well, I would have thought the same too, except one day I had a teacher approach me while I was during my time at Emmanuel College, who came up to me one day, and that teacher's here, and I'm really thankful he asked me that question. I'll catch him a bit later if I can. He said, "Mark, I've got a question for you." He said, "I understand that churches should be going out and to be declaring the gospel message wherever they go, but I'm not convinced that that's what we should be doing as a Christian school. A school's different. And when you think about it, it is. A school is not a church organisation, particularly the context of our Christian schools, which, while most of our staff probably, or if not all of them, are upholding the gospel message, the collection of students that we have certainly probably are not. How then do we engage as a Christian community in the same way as a church does when not everybody who's a part of our community as a school is going in that vein? It was a great question, because immediately my mind would have normally have gone to Matthew 28. Go into all the world, preach the gospel. But suddenly I realised that might not be enough. So I went home and had a really good ponder about this. And as any sensible, good theologian would do, I sat down and I opened the Bible at page 1. And I started to read. And would you believe it? That's where I found the answer. Right there in Genesis 1, there's this beautiful rhythm, this beautiful cadence. There's a few of them actually. God made it, it was good. God said, and there was. And getting towards the end of that beautiful song, that beautiful poem, are these wonderful words. And he created them after their kind. And he created them after their kind. The animals after their kind, and the plants after their kind, and the seed-bearing fruit after their kind. And it suddenly dawned on me that the Christian school does, as a living organism, have a powerful mandate to go into all the world, but it does so with a slightly different bag than a church would. Because while a church, as it does, it stands there as a bringer of that good news, the school, the Christian school, while still bringing the good news, does so in a slightly different vein. It does so after its own kind. In other words, it doesn't go to preach and teach and declare the gospel. The Christian education institution goes to reproduce after its own kind. It goes to plant new schools. It goes to plant new teachers. It goes to plant education in places where they need more and more of that education opportunity. That's what we're called to do. That is our mandate. That's why we can sit back and say quite easily that if we were presented with the opportunity of supporting bucket-carrying midget goats in Venezuela, probably wouldn't fit quite right with what we were called to do. But to organise textbooks for a school in Tanzania, that is a completely different kettle of fish. So how do we do it? You can take this analogy all the way, actually. How would you do it? Well, you know how you did it when you reproduced after your kind. Those of you who have. There's some steps involved, aren't there? Oh yeah, it fits. You think about it. First of all, there's a connection. You get to know them. You get to understand them. You find out who they are and what they're about. And then at some point along the line, you commit. You say, this is the person who I'm going to spend my life with, and as part of what we do, perhaps, bring forth after our kind. And so there's a joining together of two people, not just a, hey, how you doing, let's help you out, but a sense of, who are you? What are you about? Do our values fit? Are they the same? And then I'm committed to you. I'm joining with you in this partnership. After the connection and the commitment comes the procreation. I'll let you use your imagination with that. But in terms of what we're talking about going out there and actually planting the work, sowing the seed, getting the work started, and giving birth. Of course, after you give birth, you don't just push whatever it is that came out the door, although by the time they get to about 4 or 5, you might feel that way. But generally speaking, we actually raise that through. And so part of that commitment with our partner is to work towards raising that young one, that school, that institution, that work in education up. And of course, once it's raised, and once it's stable, and once it's standing on its own 2 feet, we start again. We go again. We keep growing. We keep developing. The beautiful thing about this model is it's not restrictive. If you're a small school, you can do something as simple as raising money to buy new books for schools, maybe here in Australia or overseas. If you're a larger school with the means, by all means, get an outrageous vision. I love what Rhys Davis is doing out of King's, going out and planting schools all over the country. What an amazing vision, reproducing Christian education where there's no Christian schools. Or some of the schools that are sitting in here today, committed to going into other third world countries and joining with partner organisations to plant schools, to bring Christian education to places where they would not normally have been. That's our mandate, Christian schools. That is what we're called to. And my prayer for you is that you will go out there, commit, procreate, and bring about a change that'll change the world. Now go forth and multiply.